This is a video on how to develop a symmetrical transition piece squared around. It will not work for an object that is not symmetrical, so even though some of the techniques would be the same, if say this circle was offset, a lot of them would not. So if you were trying to go for a step-by-step method, this would only be for a symmetrical transition. Now I've pre-drawn a lot of this. This is the top view of the object and this is the front view, and you can see that when you do a transition, it really ends up in a lot of triangles. If you're having trouble figuring out how I got here, of course I pre-labeled a lot of this, but a good command in AutoCAD to use is the divide command. You can divide this circle into 12 equal parts by typing in divide and letting it know how many segments to divide the circle in. I just used 12 here, and what that does, that creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines that are the same true length, and you'll see the importance of that in a little while. Also, if your points are not displaying correctly, type in DDP TYPE and adjust your point display settings. Okay, and you'll want to label this the same every time, and you can also see that 6 and 8 corresponds to 6 and 8 here, 5 and 9 here is 5 and 9 in the front view, and B, X, and C corresponds to these points here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is to find the true size and shape of my triangles, and again there's 4 of them, so I only have to do this once because the object is symmetrical. So what I want to do is I want to snap perpendicular to my edge view, and then I will move this to the endpoints. Alright, and then I'll take some distance measurements from the top. The midpoint to point A is 5, and of course the midpoint back to point D would also be 5. So I'll just use the offset command, a distance of 5 twice. 1, 2. Then I'll just use the polyline to connect to form my true size and shape of my triangle. Alright, and then I'll just use match objects properties, and then I will move it out to the side. Now the next thing I want to do is I just want to level my triangle with a horizontal plane. So I'll use the align command, select objects, I'll select the triangle. Now it says specify first source point. I want that to be the bottom left. Specify first destination point, that's the end point of the line, and also is the exact same point where the bottom left of the triangle is right now. So I'll click again, specify second source point, that will be this part of the triangle, and then specify second destination point just anywhere on the line. And then I'll hit enter twice, and you can see it aligns it to the horizontal plane. Okay, so now let me erase those construction lines to avoid any kind of confusion. And the next thing I want to do is find the true length of these lines, like for example A3, A2, B5, B6. And I only have to do this once, but I just want to show you, because of the way I divided my circle, that they're all the same true length. So I will do A3 and A2, but I'll use the revolution method to do that. Okay, and then I'll click on the line and it says length 9.5679. And just quickly I'm going to do A2. And as always, make sure your snaps are snapping in the correct place. If you do verify your own work, you can tell very quickly whether you made an error or not. Okay, now click on this line, and that's also 9.5679. So now I want to go back to my development, and from the bottom corner of the triangle I want to draw a circle with a radius of 9.5679. Okay, so now that I've done that, I want to look at and determine the circumference of this circle. So I will just type in area and then enter, and O for object, and you can see that my circumference is 15.7080. Now I will type in quick calc and 15.7080 divided by 12, and my arc length between these points everywhere on the circle is 1.309, and the arc length, of course, is the distance from here to here along that line. So from that top of the triangle, I will draw a circle 1.309. Now I've formed an intersection point. Okay, so I will draw a line from here to this intersection, and of course, because the radius of the circle is 9.5679, this line will also be 9.5679, and it's a distance away from the tip of the triangle that I determined. Okay, so I will just copy the small circle over to the end point of the line I just drew, and then from that intersection I will draw another line down to the bottom of that triangle. Alright, so now that I've done that, let me just move this circle out of the way. I want to copy my triangle here, and let me go ahead and do that 2 times, and you'll see why later. Now I will draw a circle from this top point to one of the bottom corners. It doesn't matter which, because the circle will be the same either way. So now that I've done that, I want to copy the circle and use that as my center point. And again, I want to copy over one of the small circles and now I've formed a new intersection point. And what will be a little bit different about this, I'm actually going to align the triangle because the true length of one of these sides of the triangle is 10.0347 or thereabout on this one. But the true length of this line is 9.5679. Okay, and that's why you have to do this with 2 different circles. So I want to align the triangle. Okay, first source point, destination point will be that intersection I just made, and then of course in a development they're going to share the same bottom portion. Okay, and just make sure that aligned properly and it looks like the snaps are on top of each other. Okay. And now we'll use this circle, and you'll remember that this radius is 9.5679 on this one. Okay, and I will move that to the corner of the triangle that I just drew. Okay, and again I'm going to copy these small circles because this is the same between every one of the segments. Okay. Now I'll draw a line from corner to intersection. And I will copy. Okay. Now I'm just going to discard that circle. I only needed it those 2 times. Now I'm going to use this larger circle, and I will bring that back on there, and again I will copy the smaller circle to it. Okay, now I have another alignment intersection, so I will use the align command, and I will snap to that intersection. And hit enter twice. Okay. Now that I've done that, I want to draw a polyline back over to the midpoint of the triangle. Also, I forgot to check, make sure, yeah, that it snapped properly. And the reason I'm doing that, you can imagine that when you're actually folding this, you should have 2 halves of this triangle that would correspond to the half triangles CX7 here or BX7, but they come back and join each other, and that allows you to put a seam in that area if need be. So I'll erase the small circles, and then I will use the mirror command, and I will use the very center of the first triangle as my point of mirror, and erase source objects no. Okay, now what you need to do, just to make sure you haven't made an error, is to draw an arc, okay, and use this as an endpoint. The top of the original triangle is your center point, and then the last triangle is your end point. Okay, and then just click on it, and you can see that your arc length is 15.7057, and this actually should be exact to your the area, the circumference of this circle. So let's just see how close it is. So I'll type in area and then O for object, and you can tell that my circumference is 15.7080, and it's not exact, but it is very close. And that is how you develop a symmetrical transition piece squared around. And that concludes this video.